All right, everybody, welcome to the garage. We're excited to have a returning guest. We didn't burn him out too bad.
Yeah.
Mr. Vic Wayne from Star Collector.
Hey,
Vic.
Vic.
Throwing the gunshots right at you.
You're our second three-timer.
Oh, that sounds like something we should probably not share with the public.
That makes you
Happy to be here as a three-timer.
Well, Vic, we made you promise. We held you down to the fire. When the new album was ready, we definitely wanted you to come on. So I'm taking it the new album is ready. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's ready. It's out there. It's doing its thing, having a life of its own.
Attack, sustain, decay, and repeat. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Say again.
I just said attack, sustain, decay, repeat.
That's what it's called. That's the one.
Well, tell us about the album, Vic. We covered a little bit of it. I know that you guys have been working on off and on, for a while this past 2022. So if you could fill us in the history of it, that would be killer diller.
Sure, happy to. Love the phrase "killer diller," by the way. Yes, we were working on it. I think when we last spoke, we were probably right in the thick of it, and we were probably coming to the tail end of promoting. I think probably Green Eyes was the last single and video, so that was probably around the last time we spoke. I don't know, 6-7 months ago, something like that. Anyhow, so we worked on it. Yeah, we kind of followed the same trajectory and pattern that we did with Game Day, which was we started recording it in December of, I guess this would have been 2021. And then we worked on it pretty much until, I don't know, end of October, beginning of November. It's actually been done for a few months, but we had to get a bunch of musical ducks in a row before getting it out there. So that's what we spent, from November until we put the single, Feel It Coming On out, which came out in January.
Love it.
The album, oh, thank you. Very kind. And then the album came out in February, and it came out like on CD and on Bandcamp.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of held on a little longer. We kind of learned. You try to learn as you go, and the musical landscape had changed quite a bit from our fourth album to Game Day, because there was quite a long lag in there, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, we kind of, I think one of the things we learned was we kind of just put it all out there in every possible way all at the same time with Game Day. And it went really well. Everything was, really good, but kind of took us by surprise. And one of the things we learned is that you don't necessarily have to offer it on streaming, so everybody can grab it for, well, I'm going to say for free in air quotes, but it's
right. Yes,
it is 0.0000001 of a cent for every stream.
Right.
So it's not quite free. It's free-ish though. So so we held off for a while, but that being said, it is actually going to be streaming probably by the time this airs, because it's going to be streaming on this Friday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But Vic, what we always tell everybody, please support Star Collector and other artists. Go to Bandcamp, buy the physical CD, buy a sticker, buy a poster, whatever you have, support the artist.
I fully appreciate that. Yeah, for sure, Troy. That's that it is hugely helpful. And to be fair, it actually did pretty well in that respect. A lot of people that have that attitude that you just professed did actually go out and buy it, which was really helpful. So, that helps us defray some costs. And, it's a different world now. You don't spend $15,000 to make an indie album anymore like we used to.
Right.
And we have the luxury of having our drummer being an engineer. Yeah. And I've learned how to produce after a bunch of albums. So we save a bunch of money in those respects. And Steve does the artwork and the videos, so we save money in that respect. There's still some cost, but it's a lot cheaper than it used to be. And certainly in our case, we kind of have our own in-house thing, so we can do a lot of those things without huge expense. However, like I said about the streaming thing, is the ability to make the money back is harder too. So lower overhead and cost at the beginning, but less of an opportunity to make a lot of money back. So, but that being said, it actually seemed to go pretty well, and we're comfortable now that we can get it out streaming on Friday.
Well, we're going to promote the hell out of it. Sorry, Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just say we're going to promote the heck out of it. One question I wanted to ask Vic is, did the recording methods change? Because you started December 21, pandemic still in full force, and you guys were probably recording separately. Were you able to actually get into a room and play together, or was that still a little of a problem?
It was better than the time around game day, because we were a little, we had the ability to be a little more together. But we still, our process of recording wasn't hugely different because of the pandemic. Mostly it was Adrian and myself, and then, maybe one other guy coming in to do some parts. And all the other guys except me, because I'm the technical moron in the group, all those guys have recording equipment at their homes, and they all know how to use it. I could have it here, but I would just look at it like, what you talking about?
Where do I put the tape? Where's the tape?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm talking about Scotch tape. So the other guys all had the ability to do that. So, we would do some stuff together, because sometimes it's good to have that back and forth and between who's laying down and the producer and the engineer. But also sometimes you can, a great example is there's a song on the record called "If We Can't Take a Joke" that has it's quite a long sort of psychedelic song.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, Steve's kind of wailing away there the whole band is going off into the proverbial psychedelic sunset together at full throttle. But Steve, is having to solo for probably 2 minutes or more. And,
right.
And that's that, to build something that's got a melodic sensibility to it, but also takes its essence from the fact that the song I wrote is it's got this psychedelic vibe to it, and it's a serious song, and you want it to build, this sort of cacophony by the end, which is what we tried to do. And so to get him to merge those two things when he's putting a solo together is asking a lot of a guitar player.
Right.
And it would be asking infinitely a lot of someone like me, because I couldn't do it. But Steve can, because he's fucking great. And so, but anyway, so what's interesting is that most of the time when we would attempt something like that, we for sure would have Steve and I and Adrian, our drummer, all there together going through it. So with that song, though, we wanted Steve to lay down a scratch solo, because we had some other people that were going to add some vocals on it, and we just wanted to be able to send them a version that showed what was going on basically on the guitar at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve came up with this solo and he sent it to me. We popped it into the mix, and I just kept listening to it and thinking, that couldn't be any better. What's the point of having him come and just redo that note for note? He did it in his home studio. It sounds killer. It's perfect as it is. Don't mess with it. So we just literally took that and dropped it in. So that'll happen too sometimes.
Wow. Awesome.
And then of course, when we have a bunch of guests on this record too, and of course none of them, well, one of them lives here, but another one lived in Portland, one lives in Gothenburg, Sweden. Oh, wow. One lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia here in Canada. Another one lives in San Francisco. So these people obviously weren't flying in on the Star Collector jet to perform at our, great expense. Yeah. But they just literally, we'd send them the files and say, this is the song. Can you do a solo here? What would you think about adding something to this bridge? And then they would work their magic. And, you ask guests to come on your records for the same reason that you co-write songs with people, which is you want to bring the very best of what they have to offer, right, and add it to what you have to offer. And hopefully the symbiotic relationship of those creates something special.
The collaboration.
So, yeah. So, pretty careful about who we ask to do stuff. And I'm thrilled with the people we had on this record, and they really did augment what the band did beautifully. So
yeah, Vic, if you don't mind, I'm going to give him a shout out. Ian Person, from the soundtrack of Our Lives. I wrote this stuff down. Sorry, I didn't know from the top of my head. Kevin Kane from Grapes of Wrath, Paul Myers from Paul and John, Derek McDonald from Bad Beats, Kate O'Brien and Wayne Lundquist Ford from The Ice Cream Man. Did I nail it?
You nailed them. You even pronounced them all nicely.
Hey.
Well done. Yeah, so those people are all, Kevin worked on co-produced two of our older records, and he's a guy here in Canada. I mean, I'm not, it's different here in Canada. Everybody knows the Grapes of Wrath. They're one of our best bands for decades, and having the chance to work with him on our third and fourth records was kind of special. But we've maintained that relationship. So he played a guitar solo on Funeral Party on Game Day, and for this one I wanted him to add some vocals to a song, but I won't go into the whole long story, but in the end, it turned out that he ended up adding some guitar stuff to a song, which ended up being guitar synth.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Which is, I don't know if you guys remember the old Queen records where they would specifically write no synthesizers.
Right.
Well, that's kind of been my personal mandate too through my whole career. I'm not sure there's ever been a synthesizer on any record I've ever been on. But I guess guitar synth was possible, and coming from Kevin, who I hugely respect, I was more than willing, when he said, I hear guitar synth in there, and I was like, before I typed my answer, no thanks. I thought, okay, well, you know what? I totally trust his judgment. I love all his projects. Let's just see what he comes up with. And the stuff he sent worked gloriously in this song called Broken Butterflies. It even sounds kind of like a synth, like he's doing this pattern in the last chorus that sounds like Greg Hawkes from the Cars, but it's actually played on a guitar synth.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that, so you pick people that you either know and or you try to only pick people you trust. So Derek worked with us before he played on a couple songs on Game Day as well, and he used to play in a band with Adrian, our drummer, and we've known him for over 20 years. And Kate O'Brien was a person that my brother Adam knew in Portland, who's a professional musician and violinist, and he had this crazy idea that he wanted to put these like disco strings on a song, which again, this is like another one of those areas I never thought I'd venture into.
Yeah, right.
But again, I trust Adam's judgment. He actually laid down a synth patch version of that, like a keyboard patch, not a synth, but a keyboard patch. And once it was in the song, I started laughing so hard because I just thought, oh man, it's so silly that it kind of works.
It works. No, it works.
Yeah. So he said, I'm glad you like it, but I know this person that could lay down real disco strings, like violins. Would you like me to ask her to do it? And I said, well, sure, if you can get her to come in and do a session. So he organized the session, and she just did it, and there we go. We got disco strings.
Wow.
Is that Kate O'Brien that's doing that? Or okay,
that's right. Yeah.
Yep. Vic, one question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask, when it comes to sequencing, the sequencing of this album to me is excellent.
Yeah.
How much time do you spend on that sequencing, or do you like make 17 different versions with different running orders, or what's your approach to sequencing?
Well, I do want to get back to Paul Myers and Ian, but for sure, let's answer this question. No problem. I put a ton of thought into it. It's an interesting question. I don't get asked about that very often, but it's an excellent question, Troy, and it really is something that I put months into. Right from the time where even before the songs are finished, right from the time we have even like demo versions, or first mix versions of the songs, I'm already putting them in what order is going to work and what's not going to work. And sometimes you do make changes towards the end. Originally, the album was going to end with that slow song, the second last, called 19 Dream. Because it's really it's a very fairly overall encompassing statement about aging and looking back at life and realizing that it's okay to feel 19 even if you're not 19 anymore. In fact, there's even a line in that song that's a direct quote from my mom. When she turned about 65, she turned and said to me, how can I be 65 when I feel 19 in my head? And there's actually an actual line in the song that says, like Mama said, I'm still 19 in my head, because I totally relate to that.
Right.
As I'm sure you do, Troy, with your new fancy haircut.
That's right. That's right. Woo! Look out, girls.
And Craig's rocking the swoop too. I mean, you guys are looking pretty fashionable, right? So, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so that was going to be the last song. And then I kind of felt like, I don't know, it's a good statement kind of song, but I kind of feel like it should end on a more up kind of feeling song.
Right.
And the song that it ends is really short, and it has a similar, it's also another take on aging. And it just brought it full circle so nicely, because the first song on the album, Feel It Coming On, is about the joy of creativity and the joy of being alive and doing what you love. And the last song is about the same thing, but looking at it from a perspective of getting older and you know, and that thing. So they ended up bookending it beautifully. So you think about, you know, I think about these things.
Yes.
And you really do want to try to find just the right sequence. You know, and there's things too that a lot of people don't know. I learned this years ago when I was starting to sequence our records, which is that if you're going to try to build the feeling on a record or in a set live, you actually want to move the keys up. If you want to bring it down, you move the keys down.
Yes.
So if you got a song that's in G and you want to move the feel up, the next song could very well be in A. And if you want to bring it back down, maybe the next song is in G again, or F sharp or whatever. So there's a bit of that goes into it too. So you can't always make that the perfect staircase, but it does factor into it. And the tempo, the energy, is there acoustic versus a fully electric song? All that stuff goes into thinking about it. And I'm really happy with the way it worked out.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And the more songs you have, the trickier it is, because this
Right.
one's got 12, the last one had 10. So you're kind of, but it's really important for me. And a lot of people these days just listen to one song at a time and then random shuffle, which is fine.
That's
But
okay
for
if that's what, if that's your
but for
bag.
purists or somebody that actually says, I want to sit down and listen to it and see what's this album all about musically and lyrically, the album has a flow for a purpose.
You know, for me, I will say that I listened to it, and I can tell you put a lot of thought into it, and it's one of those songs, or the whole album is one of those that you just go on a road trip and you put it in, and it's a road trip kind of album.
Flows,
That to me is, you know, I was telling Troy we got a road trip coming up, and I'm like, this is a great album just to put it in and drive to, you know. So I'm excited for it.
Oh, thanks, Craig. That's great. Well, it is, you know, Game Day actually had quite a few tangents on it, but this one I think pushes it out even further. You know, like there's a lot of stuff on both records that could be called power pop, air quotes again, you know, or straight up kind of rock stuff, which is kind of our main wheelhouse. There's we're not denying that. It really is kind of what we love, you know, the Who and the Jam.
And you guys hit a lot of genres in this album. I don't think it pigeonholed into anything.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think we took that and pushed it out even further. There's some songs that have other influences that, because we all like a lot of different music, you know, and I, as a writer, and what the people I co-wrote with, they all have different influences, right? Like Steve loves like the rock stuff.
Right.
And, you know, the two that I wrote with Ian have a semblance of the soundtrack of our lives to them, which is the whole point of wanting to write with him, because he's going to bring what he brings to the table, and hopefully if it's fused with mine, it'll still sound like Star Collector, but it'll sound like Star Collector with his input. And that's, I think, what we achieved. And I wrote a song with Adam on this record, my brother, which we hadn't written a song together in years, and it also takes on some of the influences that we both share, like Echo and the Bunnymen, but it also has almost like a Tom Petty kind of vibe to it too, because a lot of his music that he writes is in that singer-songwriter genre when he does his own thing. And so that brings out that side of what I like too. So it's pretty wild to think about all that. But also, you're right, Craig. I think that there's a lot of tangents, is the word I used before, stylistically. And we weren't afraid to go down that road, which is something, again, I'm really proud of the band for. Is there wasn't anything like, if I brought in a 6.5 minute psychedelic song, people weren't going, shouldn't we pare this down? Can we chop off 2 minutes? Come on, man. It was just kind of like, okay, well, you know, it felt like the songs ended up in the form they were meant to be, whether it's 2 minutes or 6.5 minutes, or it's got a Julian Cope kind of vibe to it, or a Nick Drake vibe to it, or a bit of an 80s thing. Like, it's just, those are all influences, and that's kind of why we ended up with it the way we did.
Well, what I really impresses me is, like, I I love Nick Drake, but I can only listen to about a side of him before I start getting a little, I mean, just in my head, down a little bit. You know, there's certain albums, but there's enough of a taste where I get it, but there's also something else there too. So there's some layers to all these songs.
Oh yeah,
that I find really attractive and makes for repeated listening.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you both. It was very, very kind of you, because we put a lot into it. You know, we put our emotions and our musical abilities and into the writing and the performing. And there's also something as a writer there's nothing more satisfying than being surrounded by empathetic musicians.
Yep.
That fully get, okay, so this is the direction that he wants this song to go down. So, okay, Steve might be coming up to a solo section in a song like 19 Dream or Black and Baby Blue, which are kind of the more, moodier kind of thing. And his guitar stuff might end up being more like the Verve or something, rather than, that straight up, rock thing, like Cheap Trick or whatever. And it's the same with the bass playing and the drumming too. It's just, they're very sympathetic, or even empathetic kind of musicians. And that's just a joy to be around, honestly, to be able to have people that can realize, I have pretty good ideas of how I want the songs to sound in the end, but there's so many specifics that the other guys can add to it that just, oh man, I never would have thought of that. Like Adam's bass line, and if we can't take a joke, or I mean, again, you guys know this stuff. People watching will go, I don't know any of those freaking songs that this guy talking about.
They will. That's exactly right.
But,
they will. Hey, Vic, before we think, let's go back to Paul a little bit. We're going to talk about some other people that were played on the album.
Sure. So Paul Myers, who's also, we met him through Kevin when we were working on our third album, like 20 years ago now. It's hard to believe I can say that, but it was 20 years ago. And Kevin knew Paul, and Paul was living in Vancouver at the time. And Paul had a radio show on a station, and had been in bands in Ontario where he grew up. And he came in, and I didn't even know he played guitar. We thought he was coming in to do some singing with Kevin, and their voices blended just amazingly. They sang on 2 or 3 of the songs on that Flash Arrows album, and we called them the Chorus of Angels, because they just were, it was like having Queen show up.
Wow, yeah.
And you're just like, and to add to what Steve and I were already doing, but we were just like, wow. So I kind of wanted Paul in on this record again too, and we maintained a friendship. And so in the song Running Through the Rain, I just thought, yeah, I could really hear Paul doing something here. And Paul sent, I don't know, 14, 17 tracks that were all layered and harmony stuff.
Wow.
Just to make that song work. So he and Steve do the Bee Gees on that song, and he did just a beautiful job. So that was fun to have him involved. And then the other person was Ian, who I mentioned earlier. And I didn't, the way I met Ian is kind of cool. Actually met Ian, again, air quotes, because we never met him in person. So in the first video that we did for Game Day, Rip It Off, I'm wearing a red suit jacket, but underneath it, I've got a Soundtrack of Our Lives t-shirt on. And there's this DJ, Wayne, the ice cream man, who you mentioned earlier, who lives in Gothenburg, Sweden, and was playing our stuff right off the hop. Like, he was maybe one of the first 2 people to take a song from Game Day and put it in the air. So we developed a friendship and a mutual love of all things mod and all that kind of stuff. And when he saw the video, he said, "That's a Soundtrack of Our Lives t-shirt you're wearing, isn't it?" And I said, "It sure is. I love that band. Do you like them?" He said, "Not only do I like them, I actually know the guitar player really well here." And I said, "Oh, wow, that's cool." And he said, "Yeah." And I showed him your video, and he loved the song and loved the video. So here I am, nefarious, finger. What was the plan? So a few months go by, and we start writing songs for Attack Sustain, or ASDR as we call it now, because it's just so much to write out. I got to come up with shorter titles, man. Game Day was easy. Anyhow, so we're writing songs for ASDR or Attack Sustain, whatever you want to call it. And I thought, well, what, don't ask, don't get.
Right.
So I sent a message to Wayne saying, how'd you feel about hooking me and Ian up and see if he's interested in writing a song together? And he said, okay, as long as I get to do hand claps on one of the songs on the album.
I love it.
And I thought that was a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah.
And we already had the song Beat It to Death written, which has a section that's tailor-made for hand claps.
Yeah.
So it was almost like he was asking for something that was going to be there anyway. So he said, absolutely, if you can introduce us. And maybe a week later, I got 2 unfinished demos from Ian that were, one of them was more finished than the other, but neither of them really had any lyrics. A few melodic ideas with him singing, but again, nothing fully formed. But they had some great guitar riffs, some great vibe to them. And I thought, wow, I can totally see me putting the Star Collector thing with these songs and having it still sound like us, but it'll be that Soundtrack of Our Lives vibe going too. And I just took them and worked with them both, really diligently, because I also wanted to come up with stuff. I didn't want to send him stuff that was shit.
Right. He goes,
"What do you think? Oh, you don't like it? Well, that's just us Canadians, fooling around." So I worked really hard on them and was thrilled with the way they turned out. And, like I said, Feel It Coming On is actually about the joy of writing Feel It Coming On, which is, again, you can extrapolate to the joy of writing music and creating in general, which
we're just creating. Yes. Yeah.
And there's some personal statements in there too about my own view of why we create and that kind of thing, and some lines that are just really me, introspection at its best. So I'm really proud of that song. And then the other one's a little more serious. It's called Running Through the Rain, and it's actually a song about my mom who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease a little while ago. And again, I'm really happy with the way I was able to say what I wanted to say in that song in the short time that's that 3.5 minutes or whatever goes by. So they both worked like a charm, and I sent them to him, and he loved them, which of course made this Canadian happy. Didn't have to be the Gomer guy. And
right.
And the band loved them and arranged the hell out of them, and so that was great. And then one of the songs that the one that I mentioned earlier, the psychedelic one, I originally had somebody else in mind to do some singing, and they couldn't do it for various reasons. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if Ian sang on one of the songs too? Because he sang tons of Bee Gees for Soundtrack of Our Lives, and has a certain sound to his voice when he sings. And he's also a solo artist now that sings his own stuff. So I knew that he was a good singer. And he said, sure, I'd be happy to. So he ended up doing all the Bee Gees on that song called If We Can't Take a Joke as well. So we actually performed on 3 songs and did the solos for the other 2. And it was just really cool. So that was another part of the process that was, made it sort of special, writing with him, writing with Adam, continuing to write with Steve, and popping a few of my own nuggets in there too.
Well, what I get, Vic, from it is it's I want to say a culmination, but it's the word I'm looking for. It's all of your life experiences and the people to this point. I think it's a good example of that. If that's maybe I'm reading too much into it.
There's a complete story in the album.
Yeah. No, you're not reading more into it at all. Craig actually just nailed it right on the head. It's I think I said in an interview that it's not really just power pop stuff. These are songs that are about, there's some stuff there that's good old, pop cynicism, as someone said, or tongue in cheek. So it's actually not cynicism at all, but it's tongue in cheek kind of approach to songs. And then there's also the serious stuff, and there's songs about like vengeance and illness and fear and murder. There's even a song like it's dark. There's a lot of dark stuff too, but there's also this kind of songs of joy and sex and and all these things that make life life. So
and it's all rock and roll to me. It's all Thank you. And it boils down to, Craig and I have discussed this before. It boils down, Star Collector is authentic. You're not posing, you're not trying to jump on the bandwagon of what this sounds like. Oh, we're going to change our sound. It's just it's authentic.
You can tell it's feeling. Yeah, you guys are coming up with stuff that's just pure feeling. So we like that.
There's no bigger compliment than what you just said. So thanks. Seriously, like there's no greater compliment to someone that approaches songwriting the way I do and the way the band approaches what we do. I mean, we have fun, and live we're lots of scissor kicks and and jumping around like teenagers, but we take the process of the writing and the recording and the arranging and the production very seriously, and we want it to be something that we can all be really proud of. And we actually did a listening party on this one where my brother Adam was visiting, and we had just finished it, and the five of us went to Adrian's house and put it on the big speakers, and it was just like this culmination of like, wow, it just had that feeling, with Game Day. It was me and Steve at the back, sitting at the back of my car, fighting with the shrink wrap. And this time we just were able to, kind of lay into it a little more. And I guess the other thing too is that someone said this, and I'm not sure if it's really necessarily true. They said, did the confidence of how well Game Day did in the little circles we all travel in. Let's not, we're not talking Justin Bieber here. We're talking about like this, Power Pod community. But they said, with the success of that, did you feel a certain confidence? And I guess there is something to that, but I think kind of felt that way with the other ones too.
Right.
I think really that they're all just kind of, each album is its own entity.
It's an instant to me. It's that here's where I am, here's where I am right now.
That's exactly it. It's a moment in time, and these songs are about things about where I am right now, and they're musically about where the band is right now. And so it really is a moment in time. And that when some people say, well, what's your favorite album of yours? It's, I use the Sophie's Choice analogy. It's not really a fair question, because they all represent those moments in time, and they all, and even back 5 albums ago, I was still trying to write about stuff that was important. It was just more so what was important
at that time.
Different things, yeah.
Speaking of that, Vic, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to. We may need to edit this out, Craig. But don't you on Bandcamp? Isn't there where you can get your entire catalog, or at least 4 or 5 albums downloaded? Which I would highly recommend people do if they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I right there, Vic? Is that correct?
You are, yeah. All 6 albums, I think, is like $39, because if you get them all, you get a discount too. So it's like, less than $40 for, and
that's a
Canadian.
bargain.
That's Canadian.
So for you guys, that's like $12.50.
Vic, I know. I just want to thank you for doing it, but I have one more quick question for you. Any chance of tour? Are you going to tour behind the album at all, or going to have that opportunity maybe this spring or summer?
Well, just like the last time you asked me, we are doing some shows. Finally, we're able to do shows now, but right now we're just booked in our neck of the woods. Like we're going to the province next door and doing 3 shows next month, and we're just literally probably in the next few days we'll have an album release party here set up. But in terms of going out where you guys are, same answer as before. We'd sure love to do that, and I know there's a lot of people right in your area,
neck of the woods here,
would really be sweet to go to.
Oh yeah.
Even we're talking about it after rehearsal one night about maybe we should head out towards Chicago and area, because there's a lot of but it's always logistics, right?
Yeah.
So never say never. It's still, there's always possibilities, like we'll just see what happens.
Well, Vic, I do want you, if you don't mind, promise right now that you will send us some pictures from the album release party you're going to have. That'll be fun.
Absolutely, happy to.
I definitely want to see. I want to see the Vic Wayne in his shades. I love those.
Oh man, I can send you pictures from our last shows we did a few months ago, and we got some. We're sporting. There actually, it's not just us. There's actually we had 2 photographers come to one of our shows in Edmonton, my town I grew up in, and both of them just did phenomenal shots, like album worthy shots. And one of them is this total sort of psychedelic approach with all these crazy lenses. A friend of ours named Lyle that plays in a band there, and he just came up and started shooting, and when he sent them to it, we were like, whoa, that's outstanding. And people were commenting when we posted a few, those should be in your album. Except we'd already shot the album, so.
Right.
So too late. And speaking of that, Vic, now the inspiration for the cover of Attack, Sustain, Decay, Repeat. But tell us the meaning behind that real fast.
Sure. Well, the picture on the cover, the idea was meant to it was meant to be a juxtaposition between, a bunch of guys that are rock and rollers, which is, just kind of how we dress when we go out the house to go down the pub.
Right.
Or, take the garbage out. Got to put on my sunglasses and cool shades. Take the garbage. Nah, obviously not. But the juxtaposition of that, and we're in an office just trying to suss out what the 4 symbols of attack, sustain, decay, repeat mean. And
Right.
I just love the juxtaposition of the two. I seem, like I remember, I think it was like the Tubes. There's a few artists that had sort of used this, and the Jam on the cover of All Mod Cons. If you remember that one, there's kind of like a real juxtaposition about the two, and I just thought that'd be kind of, let's do that. And so that's where the idea came from.
Love it. Well, Vic, thank you for hanging out with us, man. And we would definitely, in a couple months, let's check on again. We need you to be our quad. You will be our quad guest.
Ooh, four to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there, man. Anytime you want to do it, I'm happy to come. Maybe when our next video comes out or something.
Yes, please.
Anybody watching this, go out and buy Star Collector's Attack, Sustain, Decay, Repeat.
Thanks.
Available on Bandcamp. And now, Vic, you guys also have a web page, don't you? A dedicated web page, or am I wrong there?
No, we use our Facebook page as our web page these days. But we do, the CD is available on Cool Cat Music and Jam Records, which are 2 distributors out of the US that kindly carry it. So it's available on those, and then, like I said, it'll be streamed on Friday. So by then it'll be just a click away.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, I would love it if you guys could swing a vinyl copy of it, but I know everything's backlogged there, and that's cost prohibitive at times too.
It is, and that would be a bit of a dream too, is to have, that's, we were talking about the cost of recording. Well, the cost of recording is reasonable. The minute you do vinyl, you basically double your cost.
Yeah.
So it's tricky, and it's hard to justify saying to people. I mean, I know people that collect records are willing to spend a lot more on them these days, but you kind of got to be able to sell it for like at least $30 to really sort of justify it.
Right.
Seems like a big ask. I think, but we're better off to do T-shirts and mugs and things like that.
Well, however, if you are able to logistically can get it together, say we're just going to go down the West Coast, that might be a time to get 500 copies, 1,000 copies pressed up, and take them and sell them at the shows if you're able to do that.
Yeah. It's always, comes down to cost, but that's the dream, man. Be nice to do it, because we all grew up with vinyl. So and I still have my collection downstairs. It's nothing like yours, Troy, but it's
well, I've called your wife, and we're making arrangements to have it shipped here to Indiana, so it'll
nice. How'd you get her number?
No. Well, Vic, thank you, man, for hanging out with us. Always a pleasure. Love and peace to you. Seriously, really appreciate the music you do. And I will say this, it's made me feel better at times. I mean, it really has. So thank you.
Well, like I said, there's no greater compliment than the stuff you guys said. And I know that you're not just, yanking chains here. I know that you actually do listen to it, which is, it's pretty special. It's a special feeling for me too to hear that. So genuine gratitude, guys.
Well, best to your brother, best to all the guys in the band. And we'll talk soon. All right.
You got it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon, guys.